when a starving German shepherd crept through the snow and looked up at the police officer eating alone. No one could believe what happened next. The dog's eyes seemed to ask a single question: "Can I eat with you?" What happened next stunned everyone watching and became the story that melted hearts around the world. The morning was so cold that even the wind seemed tired of moving. Snow clung to the edges of the sidewalk like lace, and every exhale turned to white mist. Officer Harris pulled his collar up against the chill as he stepped out of his cruiser. He'd been on duty since before sunrise, patrolling empty streets dusted in frost. He stopped in front of a little cafe with metal tables set along the sidewalk. The owner, an elderly woman in a thick apron, waved him in with a smile. Harris often came here on mornings like this, when the city felt too big and too lonely. He ordered the same thing he always did: black coffee, a plate of fried chicken, and a few rolls warm enough to thaw the edge off wintered. As he settled at one of the outdoor tables, he felt the hush before he saw the reason for it. The few other patrons had turned in their seats, eyes fixed on something just beyond the patio. Harris followed their gaze. Out of the curtain of falling snow stepped a German shepherd. The dog was little more than shadows and bones, his ribs stark beneath a dull, weathered coat. Ice clung to his whiskers. His head hung low, but his dark eyes flicked up, scanning every face before landing on Harris. For a moment, neither of them moved. The cold seemed to fade under the weight of that gaze. Hopeful, hesitant, and impossibly sad, the dog hovered at the edge of the patio, as if torn between hunger and fear. His paws shifted in the snow, leaving faint impressions that quickly filled with white. A woman at the next table clucked her tongue in disapproval and nudged her chair away. "Poor thing," someone whispered. "He looks half dead." Officer Harris set down his coffee and studied the dog more closely. He'd seen strays before, animals hardened by the streets, wary of any hand that reached toward them. But this one was different. There was no aggression in his posture, no bared teeth or defiant growl. Just a quiet, desperate longing that pulled at something deep in Harris's chest. The dog took a tentative step forward. His eyes flicked to the plate on the table, then back up to Harris's face. It felt almost like a question. "Can I eat with you?" Snowflakes landed on the dog's back, melting into damp patches that darkened his fur. The animal shivered but didn't retreat. He seemed to be holding his breath, bracing for rejection. That Harris's heart clenched. He thought of all the nights he'd driven past alleys where dogs just like this one waited for someone, anyone, to see them. He thought of his own childhood. Dog, a scrappy mutt who used to sneak under the fence to meet him at the bus stop. He took a slow breath, then pushed his plate to the edge of the table. With deliberate calm, he tore off a piece of chicken and held it out in his palm. "Come on, buddy," he murmured. "You don't have to be alone anymore." For a long, fragile moment, the dog didn't move. Then, inch by careful inch, he began to come closer. The dog paused just out of reach, his eyes locked on the piece of chicken in Harris's hand. His ribs heaved with each shallow breath, as if even the act of hoping took more strength than he had left. Snowflakes clung to the fur around his muzzle, melting into tiny rivulets. Harris didn't rush him. He kept his hands steady, palm open, letting the smell of warm food drift through the cold air. Slowly, the German shepherd edged forward, each step so cautious it made Harris's heart ache. When the dog was close enough to touch, he stretched his neck and sniffed the chicken. His nostrils quivered. For an instant, he looked up again, meeting Harris's gaze with an expression so raw and pleading it was almost human. Then, with a trembling sigh, he took the food from Harris's hand. The cafe had gone silent. People watched from their tables, some with pity, others with wonder. Harris tore another piece of chicken and laid it gently on the ground between them. The dog ate this one faster, the tiniest spark of trust flickering in his dark eyes bit by bit. The distance between them shrank. Soon, the dog was close enough that Harris could see the faint outline of a collar hidden beneath the grime. When Harris reached out, the dog flinched but didn't back away. "You're all right," Harris murmured. "Nobody's going to hurt you." With a shuddering breath, the German shepherd inched forward until his head rested against Harris's knee. His eyes closed, as if he'd finally found a place safe enough to let go. Harris's hand settled gently on his neck, and in that moment, the dog stopped trembling. Harris felt the dog's heartbeat fluttering under his palm, fast, uneven, but steadying bit by bit. He let his hand rest there, offering quiet reassurance. Around them, the world seemed to fade, the snow falling soft as a lullaby. When he gently lifted the matted fur at the dog's neck, he found what he'd hoped for, a worn leather collar, cracked and faded with age. He traced the edges until his fingers brushed against a small metal tag. It was so caked with grime he couldn't read it, so he pulled a napkin from the table and carefully wiped it clean. There, etched in tiny letters, was a name, Max. And below it, a phone number so faded he could barely make out the digits. Harris swallowed, glancing at the dog, Max, who was watching him with weary eyes. "You had a family," he said softly. "Did they lose you or leave you behind?" He reached for his radio and called dispatch, his voice low. "I need animal control to meet me at the corner of Maple and 5th. I've found a stray, collar, possible ID tag." While he waited, he tore the last roll in half and offered a piece to Max, who took it more confidently this time. Snow piled higher around them, but neither moved. It was as though they both understood something important had shifted. In the hush, Harris imagined the dog's life before this moment. A warm house, a soft bed, someone calling his name with affection. Whatever had happened, Max still carried that memory in the way he leaned into every gentle touch. And Harris knew, with quiet certainty, that no matter what the call from dispatch revealed, he couldn't let this dog disappear back into the cold BY. The time the animal control van pulled up, the snow had coated Max's back in a thin white blanket. Harris kept his hand on the dog's shoulder, feeling him relax more with every passing minute. A woman in a navy jacket stepped out, carrying a scanner and a clipboard. She approached slowly, her expression gentle as she crouched down. "Hey, there, sweetheart," she murmured. "Let's see if we can find out who you are." Max didn't flinch as she passed the scanner over his shoulder. A faint beep broke the silence. She read the display, her brow furrowing. "Registered to a family out in Rivorton," she said quietly. "But it looks like the number's been disconnected for over a year." She lifted her eyes to Harris. "He's probably been on a long time." Harris felt something in his chest twist. He looked down at Max, who had tucked his nose against Harris's knee again, as if he'd made his choice. "I can take him to the shelter," the woman offered softly. "He'll be warm, have food." "No," Harris said before he could think better of it. He took a breath and repeated, steadier, "No, he's coming with me." She studied him, then nodded. "You'll need to fill out the paperwork." Harris signed every line, his name shaky but sure. When it was done, she slipped the leash into his hand. Max stood, pressed his body against Harris's leg, and looked up with eyes full of quiet trust. The officer bent to scratch behind his ears. "Ready to go home, buddy?" As they walked away together, the snow falling around them like confetti, a passerby snapped a photo, one that would soon go viral as the moment a starving dog found his person again.